I'm Aryeh Schwartz, along with my co-hosts for tonight, Rachel Galligan, Pat Ralph, and Emma Leyden. Welcome to the WNBA Insider Show. Each week, we got different topics important to the W. Using X's and O's along with key stats, we bring honest and critical analysis. Real quick, let's let my co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hey, everybody. I am Rachel Galligan. I am a former player, coach, professional athlete, and now I am covering the W.
Hey guys, it's Pat Ralph. I am a former player at the middle school level, but now I just cover the WNBA as well.
Hi guys, I'm Emma Leyden, and happy to be here on this WNBA Insider Podcast. I previously was podcasting with Eli Horowitz and Pat Ralph over at XL Sports. I'm a former collegiate player and also coach at the high school level. And yeah, let's get into this.
Let's do it. So this week we have a hot topic, and it's been a debate that really got started because, well, frankly, I thought that there was not enough of a debate. And too often, not to knock the aura and the greatness of her, but Diana Taurasi was just widely accepted as the GOAT. And to me, that's disrespectful to others who have walked on the court. Pat, why don't you break down how we're getting into this and how we're going to define GOAT?
Absolutely. So the reason why we wanted to talk about this was because we hear all the time about who the greatest of all time is in sports or whatnot. And we figured, well, everybody is, going to use different criteria for how to define that. That, for some people, it's some circuit, qualifications are greater than others and stuff. So some of the things that we are going to talk about tonight are stats. We're going to look at the stats debate. Who just has the better stats when you look at it straight up head to head? We're going to look at, do they make their teammates better? How do they help make their, are they more of an individual player? Do they just more about themselves? Or they really make their teammates better and raise the level of their play? And 3 is just like awards, MVPs, championships, all-star game appearances, you name it. We're going to look at all those because we know that people use different things, value different things more importantly. So we're going to look at different, criteria to evaluate who we think are the greatest players in WNBA history.
I like it, Pat. So we're going to dive right in, starting with rings and awards. Emma, I'm going to toss the ball over to you real quick. Just right off the bat, rings and awards, who stands out to you?
I think it's a clear winner with Maya Moore. I've been a longtime fan of her. I just think that if you look at the awards, the championships, the rings, everything that you could possibly win in a WNBA career, Maya Moore has won. So in 7 years of going pro, she's had 4 championships. She's led her team to the finals 6 of the last 7 years. She's been MVP. She's been finals MVP, rookie of the year. I mean, literally everything. First team All-League 5 different times. Even the defensive team twice, including last year. So she has really won everything. And I have here just some of the amazing stats she's had previous to her WNBA career. So in high school, get this, you guys, she won 125 games and she lost a total of 3. Like, come on. Then she goes to UConn. She wins 150 games and loses only 4 times. And then now she's with the Lynx, of course, and she's won 228 games and lost 77 because it's high competition. Still, 77 is not that many losses in 7 years. So, I mean, this woman is just, I think, the GOAT. I mean, she has won at every level. She has been the leader on all those teams. She's been the person who, you want on your team every single time.
Well, Emma's definitely right that the way that Maya's career is going, and she's still got a lot to go, and she's made a lot of impressive points there. But, it may be too early to say that, that she is the GOAT already. I think you can make the case as well for the aforementioned Diana Taurasi. At 36 years old, she's still today, for me, if there was one person who I want the ball in their hands with the game on the line and the clock winding down, it's Diana Taurasi. I think she still strikes fear in the hearts of her opponents. There's a reason you still see her playoff games. Like, I know they haven't won a title in 4 years, but her in in single elimination playoff games on the road. We saw it last year, what she can do. Even at 35, she's still playing at a high level, still making all WNBA teams, which is really impressive given all the young talent that's come into the league, and especially in the backcourt, that she's still able to be on all WNBA teams. And I think she's going to go down as she's the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history now. She, obviously what she's able to do from three-point land, we know she's an 8-time All-Star. And back to the first team, she was on 9 all WNBA first teams. She has the ring. She has 3 rings. I know she doesn't have 4, but she's got 3. She also won at UConn as well, like Maya did, a fellow Husky. But I think the thing with Taurasi is I will always look at her. I think she will go down as the greatest scorer in league history. I think that's hard to argue because she is that, and she's the all-time leading scorer. And just if you want a bucket getter, that's her. And I'll acknowledge there are flaws that I'm sure someone here will point them out as we go through. That can poke holes at her legacy and at her resume. But I think overall, I think that she definitely belongs in the conversation based on right now and the fact that at this point with her career, probably in the twilight of her career at this point, that she is in that conversation. And she's become the face of, in many ways, the WNBA and someone who people automatically think of when you mention WNBA.
So what I'm going to do right now, just to be a jerk, is poke a hole at you, Emma, first of all. Maya Moore, I know you acknowledge it, so it's not really poking a hole in your chain, but she's just in my book, she's too young to be considered the GOAT. What she has done is beyond amazing in such a short period of time. I mean, if you're stacking up, and we are talking, rings and awards, so I think it just based off that, Maya's up there in this definition of it. Every stat that Taurasi has, Maya's either beaten it or is right on her tail and has played half the seasons that Taurasi's played. So, I mean, in that respect, I think, it washes kind of Taurasi out. Also, Taurasi's defense is non-existent in many ways. Some might call her the turnstile, if you will. For me, Maya Moore, you can't give it to her because she's too young. And I'm going to drop some knowledge on you guys right now. A name that might not be a household name for current WNBA fans, Cynthia Cooper. Cynthia Cooper, okay? Let me drop some knowledge. In her 5 seasons in the WNBA, 4 all WNBA first teams, 2 MVP awards, 4 WNBA Finals MVP awards, and I don't really necessarily think we should be getting into overseas competition, but I will say, just to add this icing on the cake, she, in 10 years in the Italian League, was the league's leading scorer 8 times and finished in second place those 2 other times. And her scoring numbers are just beyond ridiculous. If you want to talk about scoring, I mean, she's beyond ridiculous. Her win shares aren't that high because of, the reduced amount of time she was playing and such. But I mean, talk about a player who can do it all. And talk about a player who has the tenacity and the mindset of a winner.
Okay, I hear your point, but I feel like what you just said contradicted yourself, right? Because you said Maya Moore hasn't had enough time to prove that she's a GOAT. She's had 7 years. And then you argue that Cooper is the GOAT and she had 5 years.
Right? No, I agree with you.
So I feel like, of course, Cynthia Cooper is amazing. Like, I've been a fan since I was 2. But I think that right there, what you just said is exactly my point, is that Maya Moore has had 7 years in this league, and she's already checked the box on every single award, and also added in 4 championships. So what's that going to say about, she's like, halfway through her career? What's that going to say about her, right? I mean, I think we're talking about efficiency here too, right? It's like, how much can you do in a short amount of time? And Maya Moore takes the cake on that as well.
I hate to say that someone won me over. I will add to your argument too that because Cynthia Cooper came into it at an older age where she was already, established herself, had already played overseas for a while, and established herself at I agree with what you're saying. I'd agree with that. I know Rachel's kind of hyped on Cheryl Swoops. Rachel, give us some insight on why you think Cheryl's the one.
I'm shocked that no one has even brought this to the table yet before me. But I guess that's why they saved the best for last, right? But no, in all seriousness, I mean, how do you not? And I think there's a similar argument to be made about Lisa Leslie. But just looking at Swoops' career, I mean, not only are we talking about just someone who is a household name right now, but what she's been able to do, just the longevity of her career. Her playing career, granted, was a little bit before some of the players we're talking about right now, overlapped a little bit, but she's a 4-time WNBA champion. So right now you're looking at Maya and you're looking at Swoops. Both of them are 4-time WNBA champions. And that's, okay. The longevity of Swoops' career, she's a 3-time WNBA MVP. Okay, 2-time all defensive first team. She like 5-time all WNBA first team. She has done so many things to the game. And I could expand it into other areas. I know I'm not supposed to, but her stats are ridiculous. She averaged 15 points a game, and all across the stat line. I don't want to bore everybody with just numbers right now, but her efficiency, her free throw percentage, she was just one of the greatest players in every aspect of the game, both offensively and defensively. She was a winner. She was in some ways, if we're talking just strictly WNBA, a pioneer of the game. So in my opinion, it is a hands down, no brainer, Sheryl Swoops.
Talk about all around player.
Right. Not to mention a 3-time, Olympic gold medalist. Now, everyone we're talking about in this equation, for the most part, is going to have that. But we're talking about multiple World Cups, it's Sheryl Swoops. I could pull up every stat under the sun, the longevity of the career, what the Comets, rest in peace, were able to do back then, and what that did for the league, propelling it forward. And that's a big thing for me, is historically kind of the women who had come before who are there now, and through that longevity and sustaining that level of play for that many years, and that much consistency. I have to tip my hat to Swoops.
So can I ask you a question right there? So one thing that is constantly argued in the men's game, right, is, the NBA wasn't as good, 30 years ago. So that's why.
Bingo. Emma took my point. Great point. Go with it, Emma. Let's go. Let's hear it.
So I've always wondered this about the women's game. And I've been watching the WNBA since its inception. And I think that, it's obviously hard to compare different times currently all the way back to 20 years ago, but aren't we seeing better competition now? Constantly people are talking, particularly this season, people have been talking about how much young talent, how the game is growing, how the league is growing, all these things, right? So yes, the comments were fantastic. I'm a huge Sheryl Swoops fan, and I think your point about defense is phenomenal. I do think she has better defense and a better all-around game than both Diana and Maya that we've been talking about, and Coop. But I think that we have to kind of factor in here, who is she stealing the ball from? Who is she, getting that pull-up J from, right? Maya Moore right now is against Diana Taurasi. Who were the equivalents there, and were there enough of them back when we're looking at Sheryl Swoops?
Rachel, drop some contemporaries on her.
Some contemporaries. Well, I think that's a really valid point, and honestly, not one that I'm sure I can sit here and have an immediate answer to. I think we could even create our whole own podcast series on just that topic in itself. But I think there's a lot of people that would argue the game was, they're both very different. I think the style of play is just the evolution of what women are doing now with the ball in their hands, and the evolution of just range and things like that have changed. But if we're just talking fundamentals and things like that, just like lockdown defense and just gritty and that's what the Comets did. So I think it would be really interesting if we could somehow put the Comets up against the Lynx in their prime, or even the way the Mercury are playing right now. But like I said, that's a debate that could be for a completely different time. But I think that's a great point. And honestly, I don't know that I know the answer to that.
Yeah, Ari, you laid out the case for Cynthia Cooper, and that. Another thing is another argument they make in the men's game is how high was their peak? You know what I mean? What was their that for that career she had in such a short time in the W is such a high peak. To be literally a WNBA champion 4 straight years, to win Finals MVP, to be a 2-time WNBA MVP, but an All-Star. But the exact same point. I would say if you're going strictly if we're talking about that point in the time, I would put Sheryl Swoopes ahead again for the same argument that you guys made, is that more of a complete player that Rachel, you alluded to, and Aryeh, you mentioned as well. But going off like Emma said, which you said perfectly, is like, look at who they were going up against. Yes, you had Lisa Leslie and Rebecca Lobo, but you didn't have the type of players that you have today. The game has grown, it's advanced, it's more competitive, and that's the I think the argument. It's like, yes, they were a dominant team, but the teams they were going up against were not the same level, I think, that we see today. So that's the one thing. Again, it's not their fault that they were around in that time, but it's just one of these things. As the game ages, it's like, oh, okay, you realize that the athletes are better, the game is better, it's more developed. So that would be my one thing to poke, like they said, at Cynthia Cooper. And I would, if you're putting head to head her and Sheryl Swoopes, I would take Swoopes because of that overall, the career length and the overall body of work, the complete player.
All right, I don't want to be that guy who refuses to back down, but I just want to throw this out there, and I'm curious, in all honesty, all of your individual thoughts on this. Now, we can talk about Cooper versus Swoopes, and I think it's a very interesting conversation, but how much of it is impacted, or are we taking enough credit when they played? I mean, they played together for those years, and it was like a shared spotlight, if you will. But Cynthia Cooper is the one who won the finals MVP. Cynthia Cooper is the one who won MVP. I mean, granted, they basically split it, the MVP award. But, awards when they were together lean slightly towards Coop. So explain to me why you're still leaning Swoopes after hearing that.
Well, I think it's kind of the points we just made before and stuff. It's the stuff that she did after, again, when they played together. Yes, Cooper was that, because at that point in her career, you think about it, she had more experience, older player. And you look at that, she was more in that prime. Sheryl, that was kind of the beginning, and then kind of took off from there. It's kind of like, if you look at, in the men's game, they always make this comparison between Shaq and Kobe. When they played together, Shaq was the better player, but Kobe then went on to have this great career after Shaq was gone. They didn't play together. I would look at Sheryl with that, is that you look at what she did afterwards, and she kind of carried on Houston while they were still around, and then continued what she was doing then in that year with Seattle and then with Tulsa. I would say, just because, again, you mentioned she defensive player, steals leader, was an all-star and stuff. I would just say I look at the longevity of it. And I get when they were together, but I think that was more because Sheryl was still coming into her own, a younger player. Cynthia was more of an established veteran at that point, even though she had just started the WNBA as well. She had been playing in Italy, like you mentioned. That's would be my just defense to that, is that I think it was just kind of, it was her team, but then once she retired, Sheryl had kind of come into her, and she emerged as the key player. Yeah.
I think that you make a good point, Aryeh, though. Like, I mean, without each other, would they have been as good, right? I mean, like, this argument is all the time. Like, I've heard it so many times with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? I mean, would Jordan be who he was without Pippen, right? It's the same thing. Would Sheryl Swoopes have gotten all of the accolades that she got without, Coop? I think that so much of the game of basketball is, grandstanding the individual, and that's all fun, and that's exactly what we're doing right now, which I recognize. But I think that we also have to put into the conversation that basketball is, it's a team sport, right? So, without Coop getting that steal, then Sheryl Swoopes wouldn't have hit that three, right? I mean, that's how the game works. So I think it's a unique situation that we are right now debating GOATs, and they happen to be on the same team, right? I mean, that's pretty incredible, right? We've never seen Diana Taurasi and Maya Moore together. That would be phenomenal. I would love to see that, but we have yet to see it, right? So I think that in a lot of ways, it's a give and take. It's like they work together to have like one of the best franchises in the history of the game, right? So, that's kind of where I'm going with the response. Aryeh, I think that's a really good point that you made.
All right, I guess you guys want me to talk about something here. You guys have kind of already hit it on the head, and I agree. I do think that Swoopes, with the longevity of her career, outweighs it when you look at it when you step back and look at it. If we're just talking these two GOATs on the same team. Swoopes had a longer career, but I don't want to take anything away from Cynthia Cooper and what she did in her career. I mean, she was on top of the absolute world with what she was doing. I mean, I remember being like 10 years old and like I'd watch her play and I would go out in the driveway and like I thought I was Cynthia Cooper and I wanted to be her. She was everything that emulated the player I wanted to be. And that's not, doesn't make her a GOAT, but it just means that like at the time she was so dominant and she did it in such a short spurt. I just think the biggest knock for me, it just comes within the longevity of it, not to take anything away from her, from the, her rings, the MVPs, everything she's done. But like you said, Pat, Swoops had that longevity and she kind of continued things and carried it and played longer and impacted the game in different ways after that. And so that's really all, I agree with you on that. Pat, for what you were saying, everything about Swoops.
Actually, you know what? Before we do, Rachel, drop some knowledge. Somebody who's going to be involved further on when we get further into this debate. Tamika Catchings, I know you spoke to her. Who's her GOAT?
Interesting. Very interesting. She surprised me on this. Well, didn't really surprise me because I think, as you had kind of said, she is someone who could very arguably in many ways be at the topic of this debate. But Catchings' GOAT is Lisa Leslie. And this is a name that has not been brought up so far, which is very interesting to me. But if we're talking about someone that was kind of in that era, that impacted the game for many, many years, impacted the game in many different ways. I mean, she was a 2-time WNBA champion. She got a couple finals MVPs. She was a 3-time just WNBA MVP. So she's got the rings. She's a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. I mean, Lisa Leslie is Lisa Leslie. So I think for Tamika Catchings, her point about Leslie was not only did she impact the game on the floor, but the way she impacted it and continues to impact it, not just as a player, but as a teammate, someone who is a businesswoman, as a representative of the league. She really paved the way in so many different ways for women's basketball and in the WNBA. And I think, if we're going to have this topic of the GOAT, you have to be able to look at it from different ways, and you have to be able to really define what does the greatest of all time mean. And that in itself could be a debate, whether it's on the floor, it's off the floor, it's a broad picture, it's all these different things. And for her, Tamika Catchings, her greatest of all time was Lisa Leslie.
Thank you. Moving on to the next topic, do they make the people around them better? Emma, I'm going to let you take control of this one and kind of lead off. Who do you have in mind thinking of this topic?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I would like to say that I think in this category, point guards have a clear advantage, myself being a point guard. I think that is literally the role of a point guard, is to set your teammates up, to get everyone in their flow, get them enough touches, and to really find that cohesiveness, right? I mean, you look at it like a center, that is really not their job. Yes, they can do it in certain ways. They can obviously make their teammates better and pass out or whatever, but a point guard, that is their sole purpose. So with that being said, I think kind of the GOAT of who makes the players around them better, I think has got to be Sue Bird. Sue Bird is the all-time assist leader. She's an incredible off-the-court leader. Pretty much any player who's ever played with her, whether it be on the USA team or at Seattle Storm or et cetera, I mean, they always talk about her leadership, about how she is the one that you are talking to off the court to get better. And then, I mean, her passing ability is just phenomenal. She is just the center of the team energetically, the center of, every play, trying to get it started. And without her, the team really, has a huge gap to fill. So for me, it's got to be Sue Bird.
I mean, as far as this topic, I think that's a huge advantage.
Now, I would have to say on this one, I argue for Diana Taurasi on the first one. I would not argue for her on this. It's, as I said, when I made the argument for Diana Taurasi, I look at her strictly as a bucket getter, someone who's a great scorer. I'm not thinking of her as like a person that's necessarily, she's a great individual talent. I don't know if she necessarily, yes, she's won 3 times, but I don't know if she's necessarily elevated the level of her play of her teammates. I think to an extent she has, but it's not like and that's where I'm going to actually a little bit agree with Emma on this. I'm going to go with Sue Bird, is that I think she's right that like by nature, point guards have a advantage, a leg up on this because they traditionally are pass first. And I think that is something that I've always that's traditionally and still something that we see today in the WNBA. But I think that that's something that I want to say is I think that's something that's changing now, and that's because now we're seeing now that a point guard is a loose term now, and it's more of a it's a somebody who makes their teammates better, does a little bit of everything and stuff. Again, I think it's Sue Bird if you look at it from the whole big picture out and stuff. But I think if we were to sit down and do this 5, 10, maybe 15 years from now, we might look at it differently because, as I said, now post players can be point guards, and point guards aren't necessarily pass first, they're shoot first. And I think that we may feel a little bit differently about it. And but I would say right now, I got to agree with Emma that Sue Bird definitely, when you think about someone who's unselfish and puts their teammates in positions to score and to succeed, she's the first person that comes to mind.
Well, I want to throw this out, and I want to get some thoughts on this. And maybe I'm just bringing this up because I recently had this jaw-dropping experience watching Candace Parker play. Let's talk about Candace.
Bingo.
Let's talk about Candace. 11 dimes. Yeah. Oh, my God.
I was actually getting ready to bring her up. I was actually going to bring her up. So go ahead.
Yeah. I know when we had talked before we started recording, someone who got brought up, and I'm sure one of the three of you will bring her up, Brittany Griner, those players who force the opposition to adapt. And that's an aspect that, so what you were talking about, Emma, is Sue Bird's ability to involve and get the best out of her players around her. So that's one aspect of that, right? But the other aspect is being so good that you force other players to change their game plan. So that makes everybody around you better because they have a little bit more room to breathe. And the way that Candace Parker dishes the ball, it's so effortlessly that she tosses the ball she holds it up like the Statue of Liberty and then just flick of the wrist. And next thing you know, there's 2 points on the board because somebody got the ball down low and made a basket. Can somebody talk about Brittany Griner in that respect, though? Because to me, Candace checks some boxes in this respect, but doesn't do the same that Brittany Griner does, because I think Brittany Griner demands a double team. Candace Parker, you kind of just get overwhelmed almost.
Yeah, Candace Parker makes her teammates better, especially with the level she's playing at right now. She's playing unselfishly, not to mention just the presence she draws on the floor from an offensive standpoint and what she's capable of doing. But okay, speaking as a big here, don't leave us out. You could make that argument for not even that argument, but playing devil's advocate here, the Brittany Griner. Sylvia Fowles. Okay, let's just look at those two. They are some of the most incredibly dynamic presence that we've seen in this game. And I think it's taken too lightly how much that impacts the game sometimes when we're having these debates and things like that, because her presence, say Griner's presence, just for instance, on the floor completely alters an entire game plan. Sylvia Fowles completely alters the way a team is playing them just based on her being in the game. When she goes out, that game plan changes, and that frees everybody else up offensively to be able to create for them and do their own things. Now, so although she may not be dropping dimes or bringing the ball down the floor, but her presence and how she demands the defense down there is making her teammates better. So I think there's at least a valid point to be brought about that. I agree with you guys on Sue Bird. She's just she's a legend. I think we can all agree to put her in that legend status for what she brings to the game. But I do think it's an interesting way to look at it from just opposite standpoint of an inside presence that on both sides makes their teammates better. Wait, hey guys, how have we not talked about Tina Thompson?
Yes, let's get into it. She was a freak of nature. I personally loved her post play. And I know that's not necessarily the GOAT debate, but just she was so physical but effortless at the same time, and I feel like that's a contradiction, but she was.
Well, just from a number standpoint, it's Taurasi and then it's Tina Thompson.
Yeah, yeah. I think that goes if we're defining.
So let's save her for the stat debate. Let's talk about Tisha, because 7-time assist leader, all defensive team, a couple times on the first team, 4-time All-Star, did win a championship, ignoring her overseas accomplishments because she has a ton of them. I think if we're talking about making your players better, you got to bring her into the discussion.
I agree with that. You're exactly right. WNBA champion, All-Star. I mean, her resume is
totally
as long
agree. I mean, she's
and
just
as impressive
one of
as
the
anybody's.
legends, like you described Sue Bird. I put her in the
definitely
same category.
She was incredible. The way she impacted the game and her teams and the competitor that she was. I mean, she was on a completely different level from just a sheer competitiveness standpoint. So her name definitely, has got to be thrown around in there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and she does, as they said, she's not going to be maybe the go-to scorer like we've talked about a lot of these players. She may not be the one who gets all the big name, recognition, and might not get all the, same as many all-star appearances, but she's one of those pieces that you need to win a championship team where she's a distributor, she's a great defensive player, and now she's a big-time agent in the game. Yeah. So she's making her presence felt off the court now too.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, shout out to Rachel bringing in off-court aspects. Her work as an agent, really giving back and being someone that the players can rely on. Actually, before we move on, shout out to Kayla McMorris, who was supposed to be on this debate with us, but had a slight illness, so had to sit out. She's on Team Parker. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Kayla, who's played with a lot of players who are playing in the league right now, a very, very intelligent basketball mind. She votes Candace Parker, and that had nothing to do, just so there's no collusion thoughts, that had nothing to do with me bringing her up in this most recent topic. Moving on, but put on your coach hat for a second, and let's talk all-around game. Let's approach the GOAT from an all-around game aspect.
I will say the Candace Parker point is great. I mean, and every time I've always thought this when you watch a Sparks game, like as she like obviously as she goes, the team goes, but like she really is able to do like everything on the floor. And I think that kind of alludes to what I was saying earlier, like how it's no longer be just like a point guard who does it, but like somebody like her who, even though she plays like a power forward center position, she can play like point guard because she's such a good ball handler and stuff. She does like everything.
Okay, hear me out about Candace Parker, though. And I could be crazy because, to be quite frank, I haven't followed her as much as other players. But I feel like right now she's having kind of this second coming. Like she's having an incredible season. Last year she had a great season. The year before that as well. But I feel like she had a dip in her career. Am I right about this? Where she was like initially just like this amazing player and then kind of was a little streaky for a while. That's kind of when she came off my radar a little bit. And then as the Sparks started just rising into this huge franchise dynasty, basically, now she's, the big talk. And of course, she's part of this conversation. Yeah. Now, when we talk about GOAT, I don't really know if if I can factor that in right now because, GOAT to me is you're consistent. GOAT to me is that your entire career, you have just been leading the pack. And I would say that maybe she's a little shaky on that. That's my one hesitation on Candace Parker.
Emma, you bring up a really good point. Like I was looking at that too. And that's why, like, I think when we look back at the entire body of work, I think that lull you mentioned, like she came in, like talk about like quoting the great philosopher Miley Cyrus. Like she came in as like a wrecking ball.
The great philosopher.
She made her presence. Yeah. So, hey, I mean, to theirs their own, but she came in, she won MVP as a rookie, right? Didn't she win MVP as a rookie?
Insane.
I believe so.
That really is
insane. Yeah. And she was rookie of the year and she was just like all WNBA first team as a rookie and like again, like made her presence felt. Like you go look like 2008, 2009, like she was already coming in like you probably can make the case she had probably the best rookie season that any rookie could have in league history.
Real quick, watch out. Pay attention, Asia Wilson fans.
Well, we got that. That's true. We know that. But, I think, that rookie of the year train has gone out of the station. But no, it's And I don't want the Asia Wilson fans coming after me because I know they will.
They can come after me because there's no way she's winning MVP and Rookie of the Year this year. So, heck, stop with this talk about the greatest rookie season of all time. Slow your roll, South Carolina.
But anyway, Emma, like you said, you're right. There is like a lull there, and you're right. Over the last 3 years, as the Sparks have reemerged as a contender, Candace has reemerged. Now, is that because maybe the team's better? Is that because maybe Brian Agler's there now? Is it better coaching? Is it just the pieces around her are better? Who knows? But you make an excellent point. I agree that's probably going to be the one thing. She doesn't have the consistency like the other players we've spoken of here, which will probably knock her down a few pegs when you look back on it 5-10 years.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw my 2 cents in there. I've already spoken on it, but if we're talking about best all-around player, for me, it is still Sheryl Swoopes in this category because of what she did on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, longevity of her career, the numbers she put up, the way she was able to defend. She could do a bunch of different things, and she did it at a very high level.
You know what? I'm actually going to back you up on that. I mean, I think I think that I was arguing Maya before, and I'd certainly still back that up with just the winner and accolades and when we're having that conversation. But I think if we're talking about, coach wise, who do you want on your team as a coach? Who do you think is this all round player that can just give you every possible piece? Yeah, I think Swoopes does it. And I think that mainly because her defense was so phenomenal. I don't think people really appreciated her defense that much because defense always, doesn't get appreciated enough in my opinion. But I think that she played both sides of the floor equally and contributed so much. And, you've listed all that she's done. And I think that's a good point.
Somebody that I do need to bring up kind of and you know what, I'll throw it on this. Someone that needs to get mentioned in this conversation that I know I might get some flack for it, didn't play in the WNBA. Cheryl Miller just flat out deserves the respect of at least mentioning her name in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
We mentioned her. That's great. No, I think she was great, but I think that we're talking about.
Yeah. No, she just needs to be mentioned.
No, I agree. You're exactly right. I was only laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I honestly, it really just comes down to me at that time that it's a generational thing for me, to be honest with you.
But no, continuing on the all-around game, somebody who I think, as far as talking about just skill set, and to real quickly about your points though, when it comes to Candace Parker, I do want to say if you're looking at her stats, it's interesting because when Los Angeles kind of had their lull before when they missed the playoffs for 2 years, was some of her greatest games as far as, obviously there was some stat fluffing because of who was on the team, but Candace Parker did drop some ridiculous stats in those seasons. So I agree with you that she kind of fell off the map. And maybe there's some political reasons for that. I don't know. But I think even when she did kind of go into a lull, she just was one of the greats. Something I want to pose to you guys, though, if we're talking about all-around skill, the player who, and I even asked Parker about this when she was in D.C. recently, not to plug the Washington Mystics, but Elena Delle Donne. She's a player who can play 1 through 5, and I think, at least in my mind, and call me stupid, call me wrong, there's really only been her and Parker who can so dominantly play 1 through 5.
Well, I think you can throw Brianna Stewart in there too. You have to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it has to be those three. When we're talking about that kind of hybrid, long, really 1 through 5 type of position, all three of them, one way or another, they're the reasons the game of basketball is changing on the women's side because of that type of body, that length, that athleticism. So those three, we're at a special time in our game right now just because of those three and kind of what they're able to do. And I'll continue to go on even more about Elena Delle Donne. I'm going to make a really bold statement because I understand that, I think Brianna Stewart is in such an early point of her career, but we're having this conversation about her 10 years down the road. I can't even imagine what her career is going to look like. Elena, being a couple of years older, still only been in the league, for 3 years. But if we're just talking skill, and I will I have said this from day one, and I will continue to say this. Elena Delle Donne is the most skilled and talented women's basketball player I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I will stand by that. And I genuinely mean that. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, she's just skilled. That is just absolutely the word I would use with her. She really can do absolutely every single move. She can do fadeaways. She can post up. She can shoot threes. I mean, really, I would never want to play horse against her. She just can shoot anywhere, right? So I think that that's a fair statement. I think that, she's got a lot going for her, but in terms of her career, I can't, and I don't know if this is what you're arguing, but I can't argue her as the GOAT at this point. Just really not enough time to see her,
and I think,
be healthy for a full season, etc.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to obviously some illness and some issues there, but she doesn't have the accolades with it quite yet. Without having a championship, any of those things as an overall GOAT, no. But if we're just breaking it down to skill, who is the most skilled, the player that you saw in your lifetime, and you were like, oh my God. To me, that's Elena Delle Donne, and I have not seen anything different. Not to take anything away from anybody else, but she has just reinvented the wheel in my mind with just what she can do, the way she plays, her numbers. When she is healthy and she is in that rhythm. I mean, we just saw it. What was it last week? Completely threw the Mystics on her back and willed that team to that win over the Sun. I mean, that what she did in that game was nothing short of greatness. I mean, it was incredible. And just from a number standpoint, I mean, she's averaging over 20 points a game and for her career in 6 years. So imagine if she can get few championships under her belt, continues playing with Team USA, things like that, can stay healthy. I mean, there's going to have to come a point, I would hope, where she's going to be up in that discussion seriously.
I just want to throw out real quick that fadeaway bank shot that she has is the scare. Like, there's no way of stopping that.
Or how about her free throw?
Oh my God. As someone who has wanted her to miss free throws so I can get my Chick-fil-A, I hate her free throws. It's just too good. It can't be real.
It's like literally scientific, and it's amazing. It's been broken down to such an art, and it works for her, and it's definitely unique. That's for sure. Pat,
you had a take.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you guys made a great. I mean, I like how you described it, Emma. She's just skilled, and since she's come in the league, and talk about a player who's come in the league and made an impact right away. She's been an all-star almost every year except for her last season in Chicago in 2016. She's been on the all WNBA first team, and she's just a great scorer and stuff, and great shooter and stuff. And she's just like a really fun player to watch. And it's like you made the points earlier we've made with Maya, is that she's only 28. She's got a ways to go. And you said there's championships to be won. She has an MVP in her belt, but she could easily add another. She's good. She's got all-star appearances still to come, more appearances on the all WNBA first team. Like, she's a player that there is still, that book is left unwritten. And when you get to the end of her career, she's going to have a special place. So yeah, I mean, even right now, the fact we're talking about it, just imagine what we're going to be saying in, a decade from now.
Somebody who hasn't gotten brought up yet that I think needs to get brought up and needs at least to be entered in the conversation. And I'm not just saying this because when we voiced this on Twitter, I got a lot of feedback saying this, but Lauren Jackson, a player, I mean, let me just go down her career highlights. This is kind of insane. 7-time All-Star in the W, 3-time MVP, 2-time champion, 3-time scoring champ, 1-time finals MVP, rebounding champ, defensive player of the year, 7-time all first team, 1-time second team, defensive team twice, 3-time defensive second team, ESPN awards, all decade team, this and that. Lauren Jackson is and I wasn't honored enough to ever see her play live, but Lauren Jackson's game was so smooth. And that adds to what you were saying, Emma, about Sue Bird. Can you talk about, like, what do you think about having that combo of that big small?
I mean, I think that is the game, right? I mean, you win if you have that combo. So that combo specifically with Sue Bird, who has eyes at the back of her head, And then Lauren Jackson, I mean, that was dynamic. That was just unbelievable. And I don't think we're going to see a duo like that in a little bit, because that was something special. I do want to enter into this conversation another name that we have not mentioned, which is kind of amazing that we have yet to mention it. Tamika Catchings, you guys.
Oh,
right?
I've been saving it.
You've been saving it. Okay. Well, I mean, the list that you just read off for Lauren Jackson, the exact same can be said for Tamika Catchings. I'm not going to read it off. You guys know that she is just unbelievable on every possible level. And then not only that, she's an ambassador for the whole game. I mean, when you think of the WNBA, one of the first people I think of is Tamika Catchings. She is the face of the league, and there's a reason for that. Yes, she's only been a champion one time, but this woman has like 10 WNBA All-Stars, right? She played for so many years, and she was always at the peak. She was always consistent. And I just think that she has to be in there. And if we're going to categorize it based on the way we've been doing it, I think that Tamika Catchings, to me, she's most going to be a GOAT in the section of, all-time stats, right? I mean, every single category, all-round player, defensive player of the year, or all-star, and all those kind of defensive accolades, she was always there, right? So I think that she's in one of my top for best GOAT stats-wise.
All right, so real quick, I just want to hop in and get this. Shout out to Brady, who's on the WNBA Insider staff. He wanted to be on this, but he wasn't able to. And he kind of alluded to what you're saying. I'm just going to read what he had messaged me when I told him we were doing this and asked him to come on. And after he said he couldn't, he said, "It's no question, Tamika Catchings. She's first all-time in win shares for a reason. Shout out to advanced stats people. Her ability to do it all, score at the rim, from outside, play make, rebound, excel in transition, lock down everyone, makes her a borderline flawless player that translates to any era. She could protect the rim, pick pockets at half court. I truly believe you could put her at any position on either side of the floor, and she's going to be one of the best, if not the best player on the court. So you don't have to ask me who my pick is."
I mean, the thing about Catchings, could you find, you use the word ambassador, Emma, but could you find a better representative for the WNBA? Throughout, I mean, name one. I mean, we could name a few names, but has there been anyone who has been able to do what Catchings has done on the floor, off the floor? Take the championships aside. I'm just like you said, her career, what was it, 15 years? Am I right on that? She had a 15-year career. 14 or 15-year career she had. 14, we can't even keep track anymore. What she's doing now. I mean, it's like what she said about Lisa Leslie, which is probably why she sees Lisa Leslie as her GOAT. Is again, it's so many different things that encompass the game of women's basketball outside of just things that take place on the floor in between those lines. She's out in the community as one of the biggest community support. Gosh, I mean, you see her all over the place. She's bringing goodwill all over the place. I feel like she's setting herself up, on the business side of things to just be this powerhouse. I mean, it's like she can do anything, and I think that's why she did bring up Lisa Leslie, because that probably is someone that she kind of idolized and kind of as almost a role model maybe in her career in some degrees. But just what she's done for women's basketball, the stats that Brady just brought up, I mean, that is a dominant argument, and I think one that we'll hear just as much as we hear Taurasi, in my opinion.
Something that I'm curious to get your guys' take on is, I was going to bring up, not for the sake of having her in the GOAT debate, but to give her the nickname of the GOAT squasher or the GOAT herder. That's Elena Beard, just because of her lockdown defensive ability. But I'm talking about the GOAT herder. Catchings, five-time defensive player of the year. Talk about a GOAT herder. 2004, 2005, 2006, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012.
Realistically, Tamika Catchings should be at one of the top two in every category we've had so far, if you want to be.
The ring.
Well, I mean, yeah. the rings knock her, but
And that, I mean, I think
it comes down to the
she
rings,
made
doesn't
her
it?
career choice to just stay at Indiana, right? And I think that that's really something that's admirable, and I think that she wouldn't regret that at all. Like that was her home, that was where she wanted to play. But I think there's a sacrifice there, right? I mean, she just didn't have enough help. She didn't have what like Maya Moore has right now.
Yeah.
Sylvia Fowles, the MVP, and Lindsay Whalen, and Simone Augustus. You know what I mean? And Brunson too. I mean, like she didn't have a team like that. So yes, same thing. So I mean, I think that's a good point.
Right.
Like if you're thinking about just what you were working with, maybe Tamika Catchings really does deserve it more than the other people who had a lot more help.
Yeah. Can anybody give me a reason why Catchings, besides rings, let's exclude rings, because in all honesty, this is what I want to say real quick. Catchings winning that ring, I feel like there should be a second ring that comes with it at least, right?
I think Catchings should just get another ring because she's Tamika Catchings. Are you asking for another argument outside of rings as to why she shouldn't be brought up as the GOAT?
Yes. And if you don't force it. If you can't, don't.
No. My initial instinct was no, I can't. But I think the only other argument that I could bring up would be just strictly like points, numbers. Taurasi. We've got Taurasi at the top. We've got Tina Thompson right behind her in terms of just points that have been scored in their career. That might be the only other thing. But honestly, in my opinion, no. Besides that, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
What about you guys if we're talking like who has the ball in the last 10 seconds of the game, right? Are you going to give it to Diana Taurasi? She's had so many buzzer beaters. Are you going to give it to Maya? Are you going to give it to Parker? Are you going to give it to Tamika Catchings? I mean, I don't know the stats here, so help me out. Like, who would you give it to in those last minute situations? Who had the most killer? Maya Moore?
Diana Taurasi.
I give it to Diana, I think.
Diana Taurasi.
I would give Diana the last shot. I wouldn't give her the ball.
Wait, how's that possible?
But wait. Hear me out on this. I would call a play that gets her a little bit of space and then feeds her the ball, because I love her 1-2 hop. And I know that's kind of contradictory, but like I love her ability to get the ball, turn, make a split decision, put it up from literally the free throw line on the opposite side of the court, and I still would have faith that it would go in. But if I'm going, okay, I'm giving someone the ball to take it up the court, and then you got to score, I'm picking Maya Moore.
No.
And
because Diana Taurasi is absolutely deadly coming off a screen. So she's pulling up right at the 3, and she's deadly off that screen. So that would be my play call, would be get Griner a screen right there, and then get Taurasi going around that, and she can read it perfectly, and she'll hit that every time. She also has a dagger of a drive too, right? I mean, she floats in the air. She's up there for a while, and she's crafty. She gets around a bunch of different hands. So, I mean, I think that she has an incredible 1-2 hop, but I mean, there's a track record of her scoring in many different ways in the buzzer beater final minutes.
If we're talking about giving the ball to somebody with the final seconds left, I'm giving it to Sylvia Fowles.
Ooh.
Because she is shooting 60% on her career in terms of what she is able to do. So you got it. Yeah. I mean, I don't have to say anything else.
Okay, that's really fair.
No, but seriously though, I mean, Sylvia, if we're talking about giving it to somebody, now she's obviously going to have to be on the block or in a position where she's comfortable scoring it. But, we're looking at percentage shots here, games on the line. We got to get a bucket. I'm going to Sylvia Fowles every single time. And I do pick Sylvia Fowles over Griner. I could talk about that at length, but I pick Sylvia Fowles over Griner just from a consistency, a physicality standpoint, a toughness standpoint. I think Sylvia Fowles wins that battle, not to take anything away from Griner, but I'm giving the ball to Fowles.
Oh, yeah, I would take Fowles over Griner. And even just if you look at their numbers, you mentioned the toughness part. I mean, she almost averages twice as many rebounds as her. And what she's able to do, and just like offensively, you talked about like how good she is when she gets the ball around the rim and what she's done really. I feel like over these last 2 seasons, last year and into this year, just like when she gets going, she's just unstoppable and stuff. And, I think I again as well, when, as I were saying, I mentioned that when I made the argument to Diana Taurasi, my biggest thing is like, you want the person with the ball in their hands with the game on the line. Like, there's nobody else. I just can't imagine. She's just deadly with the ball like that. And one last thing before we wrap it up, I was going to say is the thing I think, which goes back to what Rachel was saying a little bit, which if you're going to look for a deterrent with Tamika Catchings compared to our other players that we've spoken about here tonight, would probably be the fact that she only has one MVP to show for. The others we've talked about, Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Cynthia Cooper, the list goes on. Most of them are multi MVP award winners. And for me, I always look at MVP winner as like, you were the best player in the league for that year. Like, that shows you were the best player in the league. And again, this isn't taking anything away from Tamika Catchings, but I would say that goes back to like what you were saying, Rachel, about the scoring, and a stat like that may hurt her case. But other than that, she's definitely in the conversation just because of that all around body that we talked about earlier.
For the last celebrity shot, Rachel, I know you spoke with Elena Deladon. Who's her GOAT?
Interesting, because she had a really hard time even narrowing it down to two. She kind of did it almost by like the eras. Like, I guess if you're talking about the first half, second half, kind of where we are now. And she said Cynthia Cooper, and just from what she was able to do at a high volume with the championships, 4 rings, and then that short amount of time, and probably someone that she grew up watching and idolizing as a young player herself. But the biggest one was Taurasi. Elena felt that she's, and not a lot of people talk about this, but she is so well respected by her peers. I've heard so many times about how she is the greatest teammate you could possibly have and the worst competitor that you could ever possibly play against. She's so respected by her peers, her attitude, her mentality, her killer instinct. Obviously what she's done from a numbers standpoint is just, it's we're witnessing history right in the making. And I just, feeling so lucky that we're a part of it. But those were the things that she felt were the biggest things about Taurasi that, were her GOAT, and just thought it was important to note that.
I want to go through our scorecard, and I'll start with Candace Parker basically got 1 point. And then this is through the categories we've run through. And there is a GOAT at the end of this, guys. Candace Parker got 1 vote. All right, one point. Sue Bird also scored a point. Cynthia Cooper scored a point also. Maya Moore got a point, and Diana Taurasi got a point. But it was a 2-way tie between Tamika Catchings and Cheryl Swoops, both getting 3 points for just racking it up in all of our different categories of who is the GOAT. I really want to thank everybody who joined us. We had Rachel Galligan, Pat Ralph, Emma Leyden. It was possibly one of the greatest shows we've ever had, and I want to give them a chance to say goodbye before we pass out for the night.
All right, everybody, thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us give you our opinions on it. Hopefully you guys picked up some little bits of tidbits and enjoyed it, and I'm just excited to have the opportunity to be on here. Good night.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been super fun just being able to hash this out. I could really go on forever about women's basketball and this amazing league. The fact that we mentioned all those different players just really speaks volumes about how much this game is growing and how much we can really, battle it out with just talking about the WNBA. What better topic, right?
And yeah, this was a lot of fun just to be able to sit around. It's like, look at the clock now. It's already been doing this for over an hour, and we could keep doing this for hours and just keep talking about it, because we should be having these conversations. And this is the stuff that should be talked about, like you were just saying, Em. And we want to be able to grow that, and that's what we're doing at WNBAinsidr. And we hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to hearing about your reactions and thoughts in our to what you think, if we were right or wrong. We'd like to hear from you.